Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie, and I'm here in this video to tell you I did make a community post about it, but I thought I should do a video because this is a case that we have covered right from the beginning, this case of John George. And it started off sad, obviously, because somebody went missing and then was later found murdered. But this just gets sadder and sadder, this case. There are bodies we're talking about in this case, not John George. Since John George was murdered, that's bad enough. One body is a body too much, isn't it? But it feels like the bodies and the attacks and the violence is just building up. And this is, of course, John George, who went missing in Spain, in Orihuela Costa, which is a very popular holiday destination. But, it just amazes me how many people will come over to Orihuela Costa from all nationalities on holiday, families, different nationalities. Orihuela Costa, you won't find many Spanish people living there. It is mainly an area of expats of, as I say, all over Europe, not just British, Belgian, Nordic, French, German, um, all Latvian, Eastern European, Russian, every different nationality you can think of live in the Orihuela Costa area. And most of them, they either have holiday homes there or maybe they live retired out here. They probably haven't got a clue unless, they go out into the local bars and things. There's a huge drug trade in this area. It just amazes me but there's a lot of people don't, well, I know for a fact there's a lot of people who haven't even got a clue what is going on, and thank God for that, really. But in the midst of everything, terrible things are happening. So John George, we don't know the full details of what happened with John George yet. The court case hopefully will be coming up this year, who knows. So John was a man from Belfast, Northern Ireland, came over. Well, nobody's really sure why he came over. John George, not an angel. His family said that right from the beginning. He'd got involved in circles that, were not ideal. He was addicted to prescription drugs allegedly because of when he went to prison when he was very young, and his anxiety was severe, so he became addicted to prescription drugs, and then everything sort of went downhill from then on. Before then, he was a promising boxer, according to his family. He certainly has a loving family behind him. And things do go wrong with people. With the best will in the world, you try and bring your children up the best you can, but you never know which way they're going to go in life. So that was John George, and he sadly disappeared. His family were informed that he probably was dead, and they came over to look for him, and they spent weeks over Christmas and New Year, not last year, the year before, searching for their dead loved one. They knew they were looking for a body. And not only that, they'd been sent on a total wild goose chase. They were looking they even had a search team come over from Northern Ireland, but they were all looking in the wrong place. Finally, John George's body was retrieved. And again, we don't know, I believe somebody cooperated with the Guardia Civil, somebody we're going to talk about now. This is what I've been led to believe. What the real truth is, we don't know yet, because the Guardia Civil are very secretive about everything. We don't know all the details of how John George was found, but very sadly, he was indeed deceased. He'd been shot, he'd been stabbed, he'd been stripped, he'd been left, in a lemon grove in Rojales in Spain, very brutally murdered. But at least his family got to take him home. They repatriated his body. They went, took him, had a funeral. Don't forget, John George has 2 boys. I think this is, he had 2 young boys, apart from his family and his partner and his mum and his dad, etc., his sister, his brothers. He had 2 young children, and you wonder what effect this all has on, impressionable young minds like that, and will it lead to sort of, these things can lead to vendettas, can't they? It's how will those boys grow up? Will they grow up bearing a grudge against who they think has killed him? And will it in the future lead to more violence? This is listen, this case there's a lot of violence around this case, so I just want to give you a heads up for it. It's really quite scary, I think, how this case has developed. So anyway, there were suspects in the death of John George. There was, of course, Johnny Smith, which is this guy, and that's his wife, Madison. And the other suspect in the case was Michael Maly, who's a Czechoslovakian national, 33 years old. That was him being taken to a court hearing in Torrevieja, where he was released on bail. So apparently, again, we don't, this is what people are saying, what the news is. Michael had been cooperating with the police from the word go. It was because of Michael that John's body was found. He says he didn't do it, but the other person did it, but he seemed to know about it. Then, of course, the other suspect is Johnny Smith. Now, Johnny didn't do himself any favours because he did do a runner, whereas Michael Maly turned himself into the police and helped the police with their inquiries. Johnny, we know now, went to Gibraltar and married his girlfriend, Madison. Madison was only 19 years old at the time. She's an OnlyFans model, and she was his girlfriend, and apparently they went off to Gibraltar, got married, and then ran off to Italy, where they were eventually found. I think John George's family had a hand in that, in actually hunting them down, if you like. The Guardia, the Italian police, arrested them, and then they were extradited. Well, he was extradited. Madison hasn't been charged with anything in connection with John George's murder. Unfortunately, Madison has been charged with other things, but nothing in relation to John George's murder. So, what happened then? So Johnny was brought back to Alicante to face charges, and initially the judge refused to give Johnny bail because obviously he'd run off before. I presume that's the reason why he was refused bail to begin with. But because he had now married Madison in Spain, you get conjugal visits, so he was having conjugal visits once a month, and he was in prison waiting for the court case to come up. Whereas Michael Maly, of course, he had cooperated with the police, so he was released out on bail. But it wasn't. Listen, it wasn't a good thing. I'll tell you that now. Spoiler alert! If you don't know what happened in this case. What else happened? So then there was another guy, Dan McMeekin, who apparently has not been involved in the murder, but knew about it. He appeared, there was a lot of appearing on social media in the early days for all of them, except Michael, or as far as I know, I don't know if Michael's on Czechoslovakian TikTok. But Madison was certainly on TikTok a lot, and what other social media, also on OnlyFans, of course. That's what she does, and fair enough to her. That's her choice. She's a very beautiful girl. I wouldn't. It's nothing to do with me what she wants to do. Dan McMeekin was another person that was sort of knew them all, And he, he was involved in robberies over in Villa Costa. He was caught on CCTV. It was all over Facebook, to be honest, with the expat community. And then, it was worrying about Dan because, you could see that he was actually on social media, taking drugs openly, saying things perhaps he shouldn't have said. It's just been a really surreal story. This, if Netflix ever picks it up, um, no one would believe it. No one would believe it was real. Most of it, anyway, it is real, sadly. So Dan McMeekin, it came to a head for him when he was stabbed in the neck and left for dead in Lasagna, which is in Orihuela Costa. He survived. He was taken to hospital. He was survived, and as far as I know, he's back in Ireland now. He seems to be hopefully turning his life around. People, I don't know what he's doing. I hope he doesn't get involved in all that again. Thing is, I think once you get involved in drug situations, gangs, I don't know the full circumstances. To be perfectly honest, I don't want to know the full circumstances. I'm just here to report on crime, if you like, and because I've covered this crime since John went missing, because it was in Spain, I feel like I have to go through with it till the end. But it is really a very traumatic story to tell. So, in the meantime, what happened then? So, Michael Malley was out on bail. One of the suspects, he's saying he didn't do it. Then Johnny was in prison. He's saying he didn't do it. They're each blaming each other. Madison, Johnny's wife, she was, of course, free. Then Madison got arrested. And this, nothing to do with the John George case, but for drugs, drug possession, and I think a gun as well in the Orihuela Costa somewhere. Which it just seemed to me silly that she would do that because the Guardia are obviously watching Madison. They're watching her, of course they are. Anyway, she was caught, she was charged and bailed, and she's out on bail for that. What happened next? Gosh, trying to think of the order where that it all happened. Anyway, then just before Christmas, for some reason only known to him, a Spanish judge, probably being under pressure from Johnny Smith's lawyers, a judge decided that Johnny Smith could have bail after all. After being refused bail, they could have bail before Christmas, so he could be with his family at Christmas. €100,000 bail was requested. €100,000 bail was presented or paid. And so Johnny came out of prison just before Christmas. And I do think, I don't know who killed John George. It may have been Michael Malley, it may have been Johnny Smith, it may have been the two of them together, complicit. Somebody killed him. But anyway, I'm not here to put a judgment of who did it. That's for the judge to decide. But that must have really stuck in the craw of John George's family to know that not only Michael Malley was out and free, celebrating Christmas, whereas they'd never have a Christmas the same again because John was dead and his boys would not have, a decent Christmas. The Christmas before, they'd spent looking for John George's body. This Christmas just gone would be the first time the dads face it completely without John, even though they faced it last year without him, but they were otherwise engaged in looking for him. So that must have been really difficult. Imagine if your loved one's been murdered and then that the people who are suspected of doing it, they're out celebrating Christmas with their loved ones. I presume Michael Malley was. I don't know who he celebrated his Christmas with. But what Michael Malley, of course, did not know that was going to be his last Christmas. So then, before I get to sort of what happened to Michael Malley, is Madison. She just recently then got arrested again because she was involved in the manslaughter of a British man who Madison, don't know what she was doing. Was she making a TikTok video? Not concentrating anyway. Smashed into a car, and one of the guys that was in this car died, was killed. So she's up for manslaughter charges. And apparently, supposedly, she was banned from social media as a result. I mean, to be honest, the thing is, as I say, I don't know if Johnny murdered John George or not. I'm not making any judgment on his life or Madison's life. They've got their own karma to face one way or another, and if they are that bad people, karma is not for me to dole out what I think. They will, people account for their own mistakes in life if they've made them. Do you see what I'm saying? So anyway, then just after that, so, how many traumas have we had so far? So we've had the murder of John George, Johnny Smith, the fugitive, going off, marrying Madison, then being caught, brought back, Michael Malley, cooperating with the police and telling them where John George's body was, but getting released on bail. Dan McMeekin being stabbed in the neck and left for dead, but surviving. That's then Madison killing the man, being arrested for drugs charges, then killing the man in the car that, by smashing into his car. Obviously not deliberate, but it's manslaughter charges, isn't it? So as if all that wasn't enough, then just 2 weeks ago, Michael Malley, the one who has cooperated, which again doesn't mean he's innocent, because that could be a very clever tactic to cooperate with the police when really he's the one that committed the crime. I don't know who committed the crime. But he himself was shot in the head 2 Sundays ago. Now, from what I hear, he was shot 12 times in the head. And the suspect is a hitman from Liverpool. So now so it's all been about the Irish drug gangs and everything. Now we've got Liverpool being involved. So imagine all this is going on in the Orwell Costa, which is a small area. It's not a big area. It's not like, Manchester. Orwell Costa is probably about as big as one suburb of Manchester. So it's not the biggest place, and these are a lot of things that have happened there. So this is what I'm trying to say. All this is going on, but in the meantime, people are bringing their families out on holiday, and these retired people sort of just going about their business, etc. So apparently a Liverpool hitman is believed to be under investigation over the fatal shooting of a murder suspect, Czech man Michael Malley, who was one of 2 suspects in the murder probe of Belfast dad John George. And Michael was shot dead in the early hours, 1:30. Right, well, he was found at about 1:30 in the morning, and apparently had been shot 12 times in the head. So now, on all the media channels, they say that he was a former member of the French Foreign Legion. There's all sorts of things being said about him. I don't know if that's true. His father says so his father now has come out. So a point that I'd like to make is all these people, as horrible as some of them may be, and the horrible things that they do, they're all somebody's son or daughter, aren't they? Michael Malley's father has come out and said he wasn't, he just knew too much. He's never been in the Foreign Legion. He's trying to defend his memory, and I suppose that's the duty of a parent. It's not unlike, what was done with the George family, of course. Though John George, as far as I know, never done anything like shooting someone in the head or murdering anyone. But yeah, he did some bad things in his life. But you support your even acknowledging that they got involved in bad things, you still love them, don't you? You still love them. And now Michael Malley's father has come out in defence of him and said, no, he wasn't in the Foreign Legion, and he was killed because he knew too much. Um, so now, was he murdered? Because now, where does that, was he murdered by a hitman? Was it in connection with the John George case? I mean, it could be completely unrelated. If he was involved with other things, it could be that even if he was a victim of a hitman, it might be nothing to do with the John George case. It might be something else altogether. But what does this mean now for the case? So you can bet that when that case came to court, if Michael Malley would still be alive, it would be Michael Malley saying it was Johnny who did it, and Johnny saying it was Michael Malley who did it. You can bet that that'd be the way it would go. Now that Michael Malley is no longer alive, now, although all the evidence has been collected, is that going to mean that it's easier for Johnny Smith to say it was Michael Malley, whether it was or not? And is he going to get off? I mean, how's all that going to work? Now, I think, as I've said before, Spanish justice is slow, but it'll come, there will be justice. But the other thing is, it's quite arbitrary. So I think a lot of it will depend on the judge on the day and what the judge decides. Like that decision to grant Johnny bail, after bail being refused for so long, but you just keep applying for it, and then one day, what seems to have happened with Johnny, you're successful. Your barrister's successful with getting you bail after all the times probably he tried to get it and didn't get it, and then just got the right day, the right judge. The judges have got so much autonomy. This it seems like it's not like, right, if you're on on bail, if you've already done a runner and you're on bail, you're in prison as a murder suspect, surely you'd think that would be a blanket no bail, wouldn't you? But anyway, it's not like that in Spain, so he got bail. Now, of course, he didn't need to have bail if he wanted to have Michael Malley killed by a hitman. He could have done that from inside prison, couldn't he? So I don't think it's significant that he came out on bail and then Michael Malley died. Some people are saying that Michael Malley was offered money to take the fall and he refused, and that's why he shot. But that he was shot, these are all rumours. We just don't know. We don't know. For me, it's just the human tragedy of all of it. Now, in the meantime, recently, Madison, she has been back on social media with Johnny. I just don't understand this flaunting everything in people's faces. I mean, if they're innocent, which they may well be, but why is it always flaunting everything in people's faces? Somebody, well, now two people are dead and somebody else nearly died. Does life not mean anything? I can't get my head around it in that sense. John's dead, and even if you hated him, they hated him or he'd done them a terrible wrong, rubbing it in people's faces, it's just not a nice thing to do, is it? It's just not nice. It's not human. It's not humane thing to do. I don't understand how you could be so callous to rub it in someone's face that that they've lost their loved one, whoever it was. It just it is a bit beyond me. But anyway, I don't actually like talking about this case anymore for that reason. Seems so callous. everything. But look, let's have a look at where Michael Malley was. And even Michael Malley, you know, his dad loved him, I presume. You know, he's been, you know, shot 12 times in the head. Now, he might not be a very nice person, and he may have murdered, there were rumours that he'd killed other people. You know, but they're all rumours, aren't they? You know, maybe he did, but still, now I can still feel for his dad. That is still his son. Now, I just want to show you this area where Michael was found shot. It's a beautiful place. It's a beach area, Rocio del Mar in Punta Prima. It's near, they keep saying it's in Torrevieja. It's not in Torrevieja. It's up there, it's a couple of miles from Torrevieja. It's a walk, I mean, it's not that far from Torrevieja, but it's a beautiful place. And these apartments, there's a lot of very high-end apartments at Rocio del Mar that mainly are occupied by Russians and Eastern Europeans. And I wonder if, I don't know if Michael Malley was living there, and that's how he ended up there at 1:30 in the morning. Was he lured there? Maybe he was involved still with drugs and things. Maybe he went there to get some drugs or sell some drugs, or who knows why he went there. But anyway, somebody got in there and shot him 12 times in the head, and a passerby found him. Because that's another thing. I mean, the weather hasn't been brilliant, so there probably wasn't many people around. But, you know, I'll tell you, in the summer, and when the weather is nice, it's always busy there. Because there's like an esplanade, people run along there, walk their dogs, they do yoga, you know, it's like a very popular place to walk. But I expect, because the weather, so it was sort of, you know, the weather's just been terrible, so perhaps there weren't many people around. It's a tragedy, isn't it? He's 33 years old. Maybe he's got children himself. I don't know. You know, it's always a tragedy when somebody dies, especially violently. You know, unless, of course, they are a total twonk, and then maybe it's not. But it's still a tragedy for his dad, for the rest of his family. There's a dog beach here as well at Rocio del Mar at Punta Prima. I've been there many times to this place with my dogs, many, many times. I wouldn't be there at 1:30 in the morning, but I would be there early in the morning. This is what I mean. People start walking there maybe at 5, 6 in the morning, before even the sun goes up, because it's quite well lit. You know, there's like a promenade, and it's got lighting, you know, so it's not pitch black. Anyway, that's where he was found. It's sad, isn't it? Beautiful place like that, witnessing, you know, such horror, really. It's just horrible. You know, the whole case is horrible, but, you know, a tragedy for all the people involved. And so now we've got the George family as well, not really knowing how this is going to affect, you know, the court case. Will this mean that Johnny is going to just turn it all on Michael Malley and then walk free? You know, we don't know how it's going to go. And did Johnny do it, or was it Michael Malley? Michael Malley's definitely going to end up being the fall guy, I think, in this case. And then what will happen with the supposed Liverpool hitman? I mean, as far as I know, nobody's been arrested yet. And, you know, I just think the Guardia Civil and the Spanish people, they're just, no wonder they're so down on foreigners, because, you know, it's always, all these horrible crimes and things that go on always seem to be foreigners. I don't know. And these foreigners in their own country, they moan about immigrants coming in and committing crime, but, you know, their own people go off into other countries, come into Spain and commit crime. You know, immigrants, there's immigrants from every walk of life, you know, so unfortunately, you know, this it's this drugs thing, isn't it? It's a big thing. Why is that? Because it's just Orwell Costa, or is that prevalent? Do you think in every holiday destination, Tenerife is the same, I suppose, Benidorm, uh, places where there are a lot of holiday makers, there always seem to tend to be um, a lot of crime, don't they, for one reason or another. But I genuinely think that a lot of holidaymakers, not the young people who go out and they perhaps want to buy drugs and things. I'm talking about families, and I'm talking about people who are retired and maybe have a holiday home that they come out to a couple of times a year. I don't think they have a clue that any of this is going on. In the Orwell Costa recently, there was another guy. I think he was from Liverpool. He was shot in a car park. He survived once. There was one that survived. There was another one that died. There's always something happening on the Orwell Costa. I think the Guardia Civil must get danger money or something for working there. It's a very crime-ridden place, but I think a lot of people who live there or holiday there won't even have a clue what's going on. So anyway, that's the news. Michael Malley is deceased. He won't be giving evidence. He won't be a witness. His father is saying he wasn't this big bad man that everyone said he was. I don't know if he was or not. But all we do know is he is dead. He is dead. What's it going to mean for John George's case? I mean, I hope John George's family still get justice for him, that somebody is found to be responsible, and if it is Johnny, that he is held accountable. I hope he is held accountable if it's him who's done it. We have to see what comes out at the trial, I suppose. And Madison, she's got her own trials to face, hasn't she? She's going to be tried for manslaughter for killing the poor guy who was just in his car, and she smashed into his car. So yeah, it's a right mess, isn't it? It's a right mess, the whole thing. Just horrible, really. And you just feel, I've always thought right from the beginning it's going to end badly. I mean, it started badly, of course, with the death of John George, but it's got worse, hasn't it? With Dan Meakin being stabbed in the neck, and now Michael being shot, and then the poor guy that was killed in the car accident. Just one thing after another. It's you wonder where it's all going to end. But yeah, very sad. The whole thing is very sad. Heart goes out to anyone who's involved in it, in the sense of involved in it because their loved ones are involved in it. I don't mean involved in it themselves. They're all somebody's son or daughter, and I don't know. It must be difficult for their families too. So, yeah. So that's late. I'll let you know if there's any updates. I mean, what do you think about that? This sort of part of me feels a little bit for Michael Malley, because if he was innocent, of course, and if he was the one that helped John's body would never have been found, or would have been unlikely for it to be found where it was. It was nowhere near they thought it was. So yeah, I do feel sorry for his dad as well and his family. Sometimes we can be in denial about our kids, can't we? We don't want to think bad of what they might do, and that might be the case with Michael. Maybe Michael was an absolute toe rag, and his dad just didn't know that he was, or doesn't want to accept that he is. Yeah, it's a funny old case, isn't it? As I say, Netflix would have a field day with it, even so far. So thank you for watching. Thank you for caring about John George. I mean, it all started with John's murder. And as I say, as far as I know, John George has never murdered anyone. I don't know, he did get involved in a bad thing. Is when you get involved in these things, sometimes you get involved in them. It's like, you know, you get involved and before you know it, you're up to your neck in it and you can't get out. That's something that can happen as well, isn't it? You know, once you're involved in all this sort of scenario, that normally is probably because of drugs or stuff like that, how do you get out of it then? You know, how do you get out of it? Difficult. Tragic, really. You know, why can't we all just get on? I mean, there's enough horrible things happening in the world. You know, thing is, we will only walk this way once, as far as we know. And we're here for a moment. You know, even if you have a long life, it flashes past in a moment. And why spend the time that you're here leaving a horrible legacy? Why not try and leave a nice legacy? You know, like do some good in the world instead of just murder and mayhem and all that. Why, you know, just why not try and do some good in the world? That's what I would say. You don't have to, you know, be Mother Teresa or whatever. Just not, you know, murdering someone would be a start, really. So yeah, very sad. It's a very sad story, this. Please like, please subscribe, and if you want to hear if there are any updates, please press the notification button. Thank you. I'll see you really soon in the next video, and until then, may your God go with you. Thank you.